Dr. Michael Baston, thank you so much for joining us after us walking down from stage from a standing ovation. Appreciate it. We just wanted to take some time to let our viewers know, just to give them a snippet of what they missed out on. We're at the Tri-State Conference, where the theme is Bring the Future into Focus, the Shifting Paradigms of Higher Education. And Dr. Michael Baston kicked off the conference with an amazing keynote, and we just want to spend some time to kind of elaborate on some of the points. The first question I really wanted to submit to you is, you were known as you ascended into your role right now at LaGuardia Community for your ability to create buy-in across department chairs, faculty, and admin. We all know that as we move forward, collaboration is more critical than ever to really maximize student impact. What are some of the things that you would suggest our audiences and members of the Tri-State Conference do to really take advantage of that buy-in? How would you advise them to really create that buy-in, to restart that relationship for unified efforts for maximum impact?
Well, I think before you start by going across the aisle to meet with anyone else, you have to first look at your specific group, and it doesn't matter what your unit is, and to make sure that there is truly a consolidated sort of team concept. If you don't have a team concept, then you become fragmented and people can't really hear a message from you that is clear. So then you never gain the kind of leverage or be saw as someone who could actually accomplish anything, because it's too dispersed in terms of your identity. So to the extent that I would say, be sure you understand your team identity. Be sure that everyone else understands the team identity. Be sure that it's a team identity that everyone can embrace. And then make sure, in my opinion, that you look at the major initiatives and the direction that the institution is going. One of the worst things that many groups do is that they are so committed to their agenda that they don't recognize or look specifically for the linkages between their agenda and the institution's agenda. If there is not a seamless integration of your agenda and the institution's agenda, then you're always going to be seen as nice but not necessary. And I think that if there's anything I could offer as advice, first recognize your team identity and have a way to communicate that effectively with a shared vision, with everybody on the same page. And then look at the major initiatives of the institution and make sure that you are inextricably tied to and linked in and integrated with those initiatives, because that gives you the capital to do other things.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And for those who are joining us, the Tri-State Consortium has a thing called the Leadership Institute, where they actually speak about that. How does your department fit with the alignment of the institution, and speaks to that. And that's super critical to find that. You mentioned a lot in your keynote the role of technology and how it can be a force for good and also a force that can take away our ability to reach the students that we serve. Are we in a time where it's no longer a nice to have to leverage technology? Is it more of an imperative to get in front of technology to really make sure it's in its proper context?
If you don't know the technology, then you can't have a voice about when and where and how it's deployed. So you have to have a basic knowledge and understanding of the technology and the different technological fronts that are coming into the marketplace. One of the things that I talked about in the speech tonight was really looking at how technological businesses are looking at higher education. Oftentimes, we are very myopic, and we only want to focus our attention on higher education as a sector. But we have to be thinking a much more strategic way. What are the businesses that are seeking to serve higher education? What is their agenda? How do we understand how to actually use the technology so that the technology doesn't use us? Anytime your business practices can be held up because of a technological sort of enhancement, then you don't have control of the technology. The technology will have control of you. So I think it's extraordinarily important that we understand the technology, we understand how and when and under what circumstances we deploy the technology, and that we employ the technology in a way that doesn't dilute the importance of the personal touch that actually motivates people to the finish line.
I agree, and it's interesting. We advocate on behalf of our students in many other capacities, but when it comes to technology, there is a fear of what that can bring and opening up that Pandora's box, so to speak. So, for those who are listening, we have to definitely advocate on the technological landscape for our students, and I really appreciate you bringing to the forefront that is, because that's a huge one. And it's interesting with technology because it was only not too long ago that you've probably heard this, where people would say, I would never text my children, or I would never, have a phone that does all these things. I just need to do one or two basic things. But if we go to the conferences, you see it everywhere now, and multiple age groups are using it. So there is hope for those who are afraid of technology. You can adapt it. We see it over the course of spanning 8 generations now, and I think we have to take it head on. So I appreciate you bringing this point.
But the other important piece is understanding the business interest in technology.
Yeah.
Because from a strategic perspective, if we don't understand how businesses are seeking to support higher ed, we will not be able to fend off those things that are not good for higher ed. While it is generally thought that higher ed is about 8 to 10 years behind business models. So in business, they've been doing big data and analytics for many, many years. This is not anything new for big business. The way that Amazon knows, or the way that you can go on one website and then you go somewhere else and where you were pops up and lets you know, well, listen, you still can go back and get these Apple shoes. You still can go back. So the use of big data, the use of sort of the neuroscience to understand how our brains make decisions, the use of all of these things is nothing new. But now it's being employed in a higher education context. And that may not necessarily be a bad thing. It may actually be a very advantageous thing because millennials have such a technological bent. However, if that is in place of the kind of supports that actually get human beings to make human being decisions, that's a problem. Because the truth of the matter is, any computer is garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in the computer, garbage is going to come out of the computer. We have to be very thoughtful about the human interaction. We are living in a global society. That sort of social cultural capital that I talked about is so critical. And so while technology is great, you can't always understand the emotion in a text unless you see large caps or low caps, or you can't understand the full nature and context of an emotion in a text message per se. And so we need to be very careful. Don't be afraid of technology. Be engaged in what's happening. And also think about the effective and positive uses to actually get people to where they need to be.
So it's more than just knowing about it. We got to know what the intentions are behind it and the root behind that. So thank you so much for that. Before we let you go, I love the title, "The Fierce Urgency of Now." That quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What is so he said it back then, and it was very important then. And it's very important now. What's unique about this time period for us to really take advantage of the now, to take our level of impact even so much higher for the future?
Our president of the United States is so committed to higher education, probably in an unprecedented fashion. And right now, for example, in my sector, I'm from a community college. Community colleges have never had the national spotlight turned on them in the way that it has happened now. And if we are not careful, if we sort of allow this to be a movement that doesn't ultimately move, we will be that 15 minutes of fame. We'll be like any of the other movements that have come and gone and then are resurrected many years later as sort of a part of history. I'm not looking for the moment in time of higher education and all of the challenges and all of the frustrations and all of the possibilities. I'm not looking for that to be something of the past that we gloss over so that many many students are sort of deflated and overburdened by debt and not able to move forward. This is a moment where accreditors are saying, you know, we've got to make sure that people have value. This is a moment where we're saying the workplace requires that the academic experience connects them to a career pathway. This is the moment where there's a national attention on what the future of work will be. And if we as higher education professionals are not really maximizing this moment, something else will come along. And all of the sort of building blocks to make lives for students better will disappear off the front page and off to sort of the cutting board of history. And Dr. King talked about that. He really talked about the notion of tomorrow being today.
Yeah.
And that the graveyard is littered with the bones of history where we were too late. Right now, we're not too late. With the educational revolution, with the technological revolution, with the need to get people what they are required to be successful in the world of work moving forward, this is the time. It is the fierce urgency of now.
Well, no better place to do it in the context of opportunity programs to take advantage of the now. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Baston. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. My
Thank you.
pleasure.